There was a time during the pandemic when the borders of many countries were closed, including Vietnam. And so some of my family was in Vietnam and some were in America. So there was just that distance, um, that feeling of yearning, of wanting to get back to that place. And it made me think about a tour that I went on when I was in my 20s with my grandparents and my mother. It was a tour throughout Vietnam as well, and it was such a wonderful experience. I experienced so much of the country. I felt like it was the most poignant kind of homecoming. And I think it was the combination of thinking about that tour and also just missing travel, missing that access to places we love, that yearning that made this book come into being. So the tour I went on wasn't a matchmaking tour, but I remember looking around and seeing a lot of couples sort of awkwardly interacting and not quite understanding the dynamic. And when I asked my mother about it, she said that they were actually being set up by a matchmaker, and this was kind of the avenue. They kind of get together and see these epic sights, and then hopefully love will blossom. And so that seed was planted pretty early, but I didn't know what it would become, but I'm really excited that it became a romance novel. So Evie may have come from a little bit of my own academic disillusion. So she is a poetess. She's living in the small city in Ohio, and she gets fired because she's not actually a very good professor. So she gets fired by her secret boyfriend, this man she's been kind of covertly dating in the department, and she's at this impasse. But then a letter arrives from her aunt who had passed away about 6 months ago. And the letter says, well, you can have my gorgeous San Francisco row house, but there's a condition. You have to go on this matchmaking tour that I have signed you up for. And once you go on the tour and you give my lawyers photographic evidence, you can have the deed to a multi-million-dollar house. And Evie, of course, has nothing else going on at this point. She has no career to speak of, no job. And so she goes on the tour, and she doesn't really take it seriously. It's just a condition for real estate. But when she's there, she meets Adam, who is the CMO of the company. His sister owns the company, and he's sort of been pulled on board reluctantly. He doesn't really believe in the premise. He doesn't really even believe in love at this point. And he could not be more different than her. He's very stern. He feels like there's one right way of doing things, and he hates that she keeps doing things the wrong way, and he also hates that he was really attracted to her. And so it's just an homage to all the surprises we can feel when we're put in unexpected settings. I think anyone who's traveled knows that travel can bring out a lot of hilarity and a lot of really meaningful moments as well. It's sort of this perfect confluence of shenanigans, along with just these opportunities to discover ourselves. So there is a moment in the as they meet, and it's sort of an iconic Ho Chi Minh Saigon moment. If you've ever been to the city, you know that the traffic makes no sense. It just kind of weaves all around, and if you want to cross the street, you just have to step into traffic and trust that the motorists will get out of your way, and they do. But it's daunting, and I remember trying to find paths around Ho Chi Minh City where I wouldn't have to cross the street, which is impossible. But anyway, so Adam rides a motorbike, and he's late to pick up dry cleaning or something. And so he's speeding down, but then he sees this woman stepping into the street with a rooster, and it's Evie, who, as a tourist to the country, doesn't understand the traffic laws. She doesn't understand that she can't risk her life to save a rooster, which is destined to be someone's meal anyway. So she picks up the rooster. He has to swerve suddenly and kind of block traffic from her, and they have this very heated exchange of words. And she ends up making a huge impression. And of course, later on that night, he discovers that this woman from the street with the wild rooster is going to be going on the tour with him. So it's kind of one of those mishap meetings, not quite a meet cute, maybe a hate cute. Well, so this trope in particular is called enemies to lovers, and it's one of my favorite tropes because it feels so electric in a way because there is that reluctance. Because part of a love story, the promise is you get to the happily ever after, but everything in between is sort of fair game. You can do whatever. And so it's really about the twists and turns you take the readers on to get to that destination they all know is there. And the great part about this trope where you have two opposites is that there's already such inherent tension between them that it's almost in some ways easier than a traditional love story where they fall instantly in love, because they're fighting it so hard. I think in this case, some of the things that are standing between them aren't just their personality differences, but it's also their cultural differences. She's a Vietnamese American and he is a Vietnamese man. And so that comes with two different sets of expectations in terms of not only courtship, but just how to be in the world. And so I think what makes it work for me in this book and others is that they have to be able to surprise each other in ways that are very tender. So I think they come in with these preconceived notions about who the other person is, but it's those moments of vulnerability where they really reveal what drives them, what needles them. Those are the moments where they discover that even though they are dissimilar in many ways, they also have a core of values and desires that is actually very compatible. So I think it's that moment of surprise and delight that really makes a romance feel compelling and readable.